The sun's shining, birds are singing, and all feels right in the world.
Until the season changes and suddenly you lose your motivation to get out of bed. In fact, 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, no matter the season or time of year.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, because we want you to live your best life and be your best you all year round.
Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
What's going on, Los Angeles, Bruin Nation, LAFB fam? How we doing? Your dynamic duo, the Thriller and Madman, back together again for all of your UCLA sports needs. And we have a very esteemed guest, the one and only Russell Stong, basketball legend, fan favorite, engineering alumni, future titan of the private equity industry, you know, and a dear friend and someone who's just sort of a rock star on and off the court. Russell, thanks so much for making the time all the way on the East Coast for Will and I.
Of course, thanks for having me, and that's quite an entrance. I need that intro everywhere I go.
There we go. Russell, you just have me on recording, you know, when you walk into that office, you know, and we're ready to rock and roll, you know. Well, Russell, thanks so much for joining us, and lots to talk about, it feels like, with UCLA basketball. I mean, you know, we're in Los Angeles here, home of Six Flags Magic Mountain and Disneyland, but it's been quite the roller coaster this basketball season. So excited to kind of get your thoughts on all of that. But first things first, before I hand it over to Thriller, what a weekend performance, huh? I mean, kind of going into Galen Center, 19 buses full of students, a total stadium takeover. Bruins prevail over arch rival USC 89-68. Second consecutive 20-plus point victory over SC this season. Cronin now 5 straight against SC. UCLA's won 8 of the last 10 against SC. And Donovan Dent just had another iconic kind of performance there, getting to the rim at will, 25 points, 7 assists to follow up that 30-piece that he had about 10 days earlier at Pauley. Russell, just your thoughts on the performance over the weekend, kind of how sweet it was to win in the fashion UCLA did in Galen, and what you think this sort of means, you know, given sort of your expert eye on the weeks ahead for this team.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's always good when you can go beat USC, whether it's at Pauley, Galen Center, or Venice Beach. If you're beating USC, as long as LA bleeds blue, that's how it should be. So definitely a proud moment for me. And, you know, shout out to my guy, Jack Seidler, because he's the walk-on there. And he was able to get in the game, even picked up a flagrant foul. So looking on as a proud friend, but just all the guys out there really, you know, like you said, the season's been a roller coaster, and they've been sticking with it. And, you know, we like to peak at the right time. It's March. That's what Bruins are made for, is March Madness. So I think we're definitely on the upward trajectory when we need to be. And, yeah, coming off big momentum win at the Galen Center. Hopefully we can carry it into the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, Russell. I mean, it's so great to have you on. You're like one of the guys that we've been kind of pining to get on the show. And you have a unique experience. You got to play for Mick Cronin. What kind of coach is he like in the huddle? Because we only see the militaristic side of Mick. And even in what we would categorize as a season that, you know, at times has fell short of the expectations. You talk about a guy that's got 3 home wins over top 10 opponents, the first time that's been done since Kentucky back in 2011, 2012. What kind of coach is Mick Cronin? Because he's as intense as it looks from the outside. Does he have a soft side for his players as well, Russell?
Yeah, you know, that's the biggest thing about Cronin is, like, he has all of his players' best interest in mind first. And, he's a winner. Like you said, he finds ways to win games, bring the most out of our players. But, it is very intense. So you got to have some thick skin. But if you can really listen to what he's saying, not necessarily how he's saying it to you sometimes, he finds ways to win. He'll make you a better player. So it's just really tapping in. And there's sometimes a little bit of an adjustment. A lot of our team was different with this new NIL era, and usually his teams develop. My team, we were together for pretty much 4 years. And so it takes a little bit of time for it to click. But we like to peak in March, like I said. So as long as it's clicking right now, that's what matters. And Coach Cronin will find a way to win games if you just listen and play the right game of basketball, Bruin basketball.
Yeah, Russell, really well said there. You obviously were on the team 5 years, incredible sort of moments. I would have to imagine the highlight being that 21 run from the first four to the final four and how iconic and special that was. I have to ask you, that team was just such a Cinderella, literally lit up the whole city, if you recall, between Santa Monica Pier, City Hall. I mean, every major Los Angeles monument was blue and gold at a time the city really needed it with COVID. It was so special. That team kind of went into the tournament with 4 straight conference losses and then lost the game in the conference tournament. It was 5 losses in a row, the most unlikely of runs, and just the chemistry was right, and it took a miraculous shot from Suggs to sort of prevent that team from going even further, and who knows, potentially even cutting down the nets to be able to win it all. How do you see this team, if at all? I mean, are there any similarities here? Because Will and I have been kind of going back and forth all season. You can take the glass half full approach. You can take the glass half empty approach. The one thing I sit back and wonder is this is a team, for all their ups and downs, finished 13-7 in the Big Ten, which was a very, very difficult conference. If you go back and look at that Indiana game where we all 3 of us were at, and that was a tough call in double overtime off of that Indiana player, really felt like that was a tough call. If that call goes the other way and UCLA is able to pull that game out and they had a slightly better effort against Minnesota, you're talking about a team that would have finished 15-5 in the Big Ten. And given the way all the tiebreaks played out, that would have been the number 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament. And so when you think about kind of glass half full, glass half empty, you can't help but think, the ceiling is not that far away. But your thoughts, Russell, about this team, any similarities you're seeing, with that acute eye of this team in 21, and do you think this team has it in them to make a deep run in March?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, whenever I think about UCLA basketball, it's always glass half full. We always have the potential. And, growing up, my dad, when I was playing sports and watching pro sports, there are always a few teams that you don't want to see in the postseason. UCLA, no matter where they're at in their previous games, how they perform the whole season, you just don't want to see UCLA. We're such a historic program with a lot of pride. And a lot of our guys recognize that. So always glass half full for sure. And in terms of similarities, we have a good mid-post presence in Tyler Bilodeau, similar to where we had Jaquez. We have a great point guard that is pass first, but can also shoot the ball in Donovan Dent, similar to Tiger Campbell. And we have strong, tough rebounding guards that can also shoot in Tyler Perry, Sky Clark, similar to Johnny Juzang and Jules Bernard, and guys that want to rebound like Jamar Brown coming off the bench with high energy. So they're primed to make a run for sure. And I definitely see the similarities. And like I said, always rooting for them, glass half full, because, UCLA is always going to be a problem. Mick, Cronin rallying them from behind, and, all the guys bringing the energy every day, pushing through. And, I'm really excited to see what they can do for sure.
That 2021 Final Four run, you said anything could happen once it gets to March for Bruins basketball. Russell, you guys, I think a lot of people forget, it was just a very different version of UCLA basketball, because when you look at, the teams of the 70s and the late 60s, it was the 1 seed. They were the team everyone was chasing. You guys were in the play-in game. You guys got hot during March. What was the moment you felt the team really hit the switch where it was like, we're not only good and we're in this tournament, but we could beat anybody on the court at any given time? And lo and behold, man, you guys were dancing all the way up to the Final Four, Russ.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, right after we got that first win against Michigan State, anything's possible. And I remember, sitting in the hotel room after the game, because the way my room is there's a big window, and then on like the opposite building was like the whole bracket on the entire thing. And we weren't etched into it yet because, like you said, we were in the playing game. And I could see the guys, working on the skyscraper in the middle of the night, basically painting on UCLA to play in the first round. And first of all, that was a surreal moment, like just being able to make the tournament. Growing up as a kid, you always wanted to play. And, we came off a improbable win. Like, we probably shouldn't have won that first round anyway, or playing game, especially against a great Michigan State team, Tom Izzo. That was also surreal for me to be able to shake his hand, and, legend of the game for sure. So I think that moment right there really just put the spark. And I'm a very optimistic guy, and I'm always going to be rooting for our team, even, if I have no business rooting for our team. But so right then and there, with all the guys, and it was a special situation being in the bubble. So all we had was each other at that point. It was a unique experience in that way, but it brought us a lot closer together. And yeah, from right there, I think we all believed that if we could beat that team in the fashion that we did, just continue and ride that energy all the way to the end.
And ride the energy you did, Russell. I want to switch gears a little bit. We're talking so much about this year and the momentum, and, you have to in terms of March. And I'm sure we'll talk about it some more. I want you to sort of give me a state of how you think the future of UCLA basketball is positioned, next year, the year beyond, and so on and so forth. How do you see, you mentioned it, NIL era, how do you see UCLA sort of positioned in that NIL era? A lot of conversation around Mick's ability to recruit, and how do you see that kind of play out, and what do you think, in your estimation, is like the best version of a Mick Cronin team? You kind of alluded to it, or it takes, sometimes 2, 3, 4 years for it to gel together. How do you see like high star players with transfer portal players, with guys that sort of grow into the program? What do you think is kind of that ideal mix for a Cronin roster? And how do you see UCLA's ability to kind of recruit moving forward with NIL and with Mick?
Yeah, first I'll just start by saying we're definitely going to be able to compete. We have the money, we have the historic program, we have the location, we have, everything that UCLA is and was. So I think with that, we just bring that momentum into our recruiting. I think there will probably be more of a focus on like transfer portal, older guys, because I feel like Cronin, can win with those more battle-tested, physical, understand the college game, because it is definitely a different game and a step up. Especially, now you got guys that are 25, still playing basketball, coming back from the NBA, all that stuff. So we're always going to find a way to compete. So I'm not too worried on that front. And, Cronin does have a brand of basketball, and it is going to be a physical, hard-nosed one at that. And if we can pair that with the talent on the offensive side, that's how these Bruin teams can start to do some damage. I think we're fine. I think there's a little bit of an overreaction in terms of how people feel about Cronin and things like that, but it's just the ebbs and the flows of the college basketball game, and staying level-headed is a big thing. And really the guys coming together is going to be huge for us, even moving forward, especially, as teams will seem to have more of a quick cycle to them. So it is going to be, critical that we have some sort of bonding nature. And I think Cronin and his staff are good at doing that. And I've noticed, even when I talk to my friends still on the team, that there is a shift in attitude right now, and they're really been leaning on each other. And even Cronin has been making adjustments in the way that he approaches different scouting reports or practice plans, and even coaching game plans. So everybody's learning, everybody's shifting toward how we're going to make this thing work, and seems like we're on the right trajectory, and we'll continue that even to the next years for sure.
Man, speaking of recruiting, what was your process like of ending up in the blue and gold? Because, man, it's such an iconic university. You're sharing the same uniform as Kareem, Bill Walton, Baron Davis, some of the greats, Russell. So tell me what it was like, in the recruitment process to get to UCLA and ultimately be able to wear a jersey that many kids all around the country want to wear one day when they pick up a basketball.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something I recognized early on was, how much of a privilege and an honor it is to even wear the jersey and be a part of, some of the legends that you just named. For me, I mean, the recruitment process was, at least at the D1 level, was non-existent. For me, so I played at Crespi Carmelite High School in Encino. We were pretty good at basketball, 2-time state champions, undefeated league champions, still the only ones to ever do that. And on my team, I had point guard Brandon Williams, who went to Arizona and is now on the Dallas Mavericks. My shooting guard was DeAnthony Melton, who went to the school across town. And then
you don't have to mention that school, by the way.
Yeah, not to mention Lowbrow. Yeah. But yeah, he's on the Warriors now. And then RIP, my power forward, Kyle Owens, played D1 at Montana and UC Riverside. So on a good day, I was our third or fourth option. So I knew how to fit into a role. I could shoot the ball. I could play a little bit of defense. So that got me some D2, D3 interest, local California schools. And for me, I just wanted that big school experience with also great academics, and look no further than UCLA. So I applied as an engineer. I got in as a mechanical engineer. And I originally wasn't even on the team. I, came in as a regular student. And I was talking to my high school head coach, also named Russell, Coach Russell White. And, with all my teammates getting recruited, he had a contact with the associate head coach at the time, who during the Alfred coaching staff was Dwayne Broussard. So basically just got his phone number, cold called him and said, "Hey, I play for Crespi Carmelite. You might have seen me play. Russell White gave me your number." And I was fortunate enough to even get an interview, sit down with him in the Morgan Center. And basically he was like, "Yeah, you can be a manager for our team." And I said, "Look, as much as I want to help the team however I can, that's not really something I'm very interested in. It's a dream of mine to play at UCLA. I want to be a player for your team." He gave me like a private tryout. I guess it went pretty well, but I still got ghosted. He ghosted me for a couple months. So I started UCLA as an engineer, and I'm studying for my first midterm in Powell Library. I remember it to this day, in Physics 1A. And I get a call from Coach Broussard, and I start freaking out. Like my heart starts racing, and I'm in the library, so I had to run out of there so I could pick up the phone. And all I hear is, "Russ, we need you at practice tomorrow." And I sat there pretty speechless, and I was like, "Okay, let's do it." Signed up for NCAA eligibility right then and there, and I was at practice the next day, and pretty much the rest is history. So. Didn't really get recruited, but I suppose I shoved myself in the door and made my way into the basketball team.
Oh, what an incredible story, Russell. So inspirational for all our listeners and viewers that, it's there's a lot of non-traditional ways to get to where you need to go. There's a lot of unorthodox ways to get to where you need to go. Russell, this has been so fun, but before we get you out of here, one last question for you.
Sure.
How far do you think this team's going to go this year? If you had to sort of, put a round to it or whatnot, like in as objective as you could possibly be. How far do you think this team is going to go? And if there's someone other than UCLA that's going to cut down the nets in March, who's the team that you've got your eye on as the favorite?
I'll tell you who I got my eye on, but UCLA is going all the way.
Yes, sir.
And I hope that somehow we get paired against Gonzaga, Arizona, all of them. I just want to take them out all the way, leave no prisoners, maybe even beat Michigan here and there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I got Bruins going all the way. I will say some other teams. I know Miami of Ohio has been getting hate. I think they should be in the tournament. I don't know if you guys have been following that. They're an undefeated team, and I think they deserve it because I don't know how much more they could have done. But I still think they're going to get eliminated pretty early. But I think they should be in the tournament. Let me see. I like St. John's just because I'm a big Rick Pitino fan. And, Cronin comes from that sort of coaching family. And one of our assistants when I was at UCLA is now at St. John's, Greg Jankowski. So I've been rooting for them on the side, not too hard, but I'm rooting for St. John's as well. But yeah, I mean, the Big Ten's looking good. We're ready. We're battle tested, and we're primed and looking up for March for sure. So we're going all the way.
Well, going all the way, indeed. You heard it here, folks. Russell has said we're going all the way. From your mouth to God's ears, Russell. But man, oh man, this has been so fun. We gotta, if your time permits, Russell, we gotta have you back on the show. Would love to kind of get your thoughts over the course of March and on the other side of the tournament as well. I know how busy you are. What a tremendous career you've got going on back east there, and just continue to wish you all the best, all the success in the world, and thrilled to be kind of partnering with you on some things in the engineering school as well. So always a pleasure to see you, my friend, and thanks so much for making the time. And folks, like we always say with Thriller, hopefully Russell, Will and I were talking about this offline. It seems like it's in the air that we're going to play in San Diego, and it feels like, there could be a 1-8 game with Arizona. And so I think if that happens, Russ, I mean, Thriller and I are going to be there. Hopefully, maybe the schedule allows you to make your way down to San Diego, for a big one there. But Russell, thank you so much as always for the time. And folks, we will be back in a few days to talk more things Bruin ball. We got to get ready for this game against the winner of Minnesota and Rutgers. And March is here, baby. The March Madness is upon us. And like we always say before we leave, be loud, be proud, be passionate, Bruins. And until next time, fours up forever, baby.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.